Any hoot. Do we want to get started then?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm good to go.
Okay.
I'm good to noodle.
What?
I don't know. I was just trying it out.
Yeah, keep that one on your back. And then as soon as you get home, throw it away.
No, I'm gonna eat the noodle.
Throw it away in the trash.
Eat it. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Green Light. The Green Light Podcast. Episode 10!
I'm gonna listen to that later and just sob. Just sob openly. Episode 10!
Wow!
What a huge milestone we have going on right here. I'm so
We've been doing
pumped.
this for 2.5 months.
We really have.
Wow.
And, well, I guess we kind of been doing it for longer because we
Technically,
recorded those
recorded
episodes
beforehand.
in, like, March, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because we recorded when it was UNC spring break.
Mm-hmm. And Ellie was here.
Wow.
Yeah, shout out
that's
Ellie.
Crazy.
Our first
Ellie
recurring
Baker,
guest
the OG.
of our recurring writer, I guess, because we've had a bunch of recurring
Yeah.
guests, i.e. all of our housemates. Once again, shout out to all of you.
Wow.
So what do
love
we
you
do
guys.
here, Lauren? What do we do on this podcast?
Well, if you're new here, then
Mhm.
we read unproduced plays and screenplays and interview the awesome people who wrote them. And if you're old here, then we also
Then
do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Also, just a nice little shout out for those who are old. You know, the elderly. I did that too, though. I'm gonna do
Stay
that.
safe. Stay safe out there.
Yep. Stay safe out there, folks. As we
Yeah.
know.
Um.
So,
Yeah.
is it time? Do we
You
do
might have
this?
noticed we just said it's episode 10, and if
Mhm.
you have been keeping up on our last few episodes,
Which once again, thank you.
thank you, and also our social media, you know that we owe you a big announcement. So
Yes,
can
we do.
get a drum roll, please. We're launching our Patreon! Yay! So, if you're new to the concept of Patreon, we are not, because we have listened to podcasts before. Patreon is basically a platform where you can support artists and creators, whether they're podcasters, artists, musicians, writers, whatever. So,
Typically in exchange for, like, bonus content a lot of the times.
So this show will continue to be free whether you give us money or not through Patreon, or we're also going to have a PayPal with tglsubmit@gmail.com to make one-time donations. Patreon is like a monthly thing. So you can sign up with different tiers to give $1, $3, $5, whatever.
And we'll explain that in just a second.
Yes, you can do that every month, and you would be charged for that once a month. And yeah, you can go on the website and see more details. We'll put the link in the description. But basically, what we kind of want to go over is what we would be doing with that money. So first and foremost, we want to be able to spend more of our time doing this as opposed to our day jobs to bring you a better show.
For sure.
So that means spending more time reaching out to writers and getting more scripts, reading more scripts.
Doing more social media stuff.
Yeah,
doing things
potentially
like
reaching
that.
out to more actors. So
Growing
we
the
can,
podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
And something that would also allow us to reach out to more actors and more people is if we were able to get more mics. So right now we have an awesome mic, courtesy of Nicholas Baffia.
Thank you, Nick.
We would love to eventually get more mics so we can record somewhere that's not a closet and have equal, if not even better, audio quality. That would also allow us to reach out to actors that we don't know who, would be more willing to come record with us in a room as opposed to a closet.
And if we can financially compensate them for it, as
Exactly.
well as our writers. We really hope to get to a point where we can do that.
Exactly, because we want to value their work and talent and art.
Absolutely. And we do. And that's the point of this podcast.
Absolutely.
But we want to do that financially, because it's hard out there. It's hard.
So we'll just do a quick little rundown of like some of the content you can expect to get if you sign up for Patreon.
Exactly. So we have, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different tiers that you can sign up at. Lowest is $1, highest is $50, which is a lot, but you get a lot with that $50.
Absolutely.
So it includes things like just bonus interview stuff or just overflow from our general episodes.
Yeah.
Kind of like the episode that we had with Michael where he talked about anime. That's sort of at the lowest tier where you can get stuff like that, just overflow from our episode. One of the things I'm most excited about, that's just the next tier up, $5 a month, is our green lit episodes. So what these are going to be is Lauren and I are going to watch a nostalgic movie from our childhood. It could be like a kid's movie, or it could just be something that we enjoyed. And we are going to pair that with a nice alcoholic beverage. And then we are going to, immediately after we watch it, come on, discuss it with said alcoholic beverage, and it's just going to be a great time. That's going to be once a month.
And we will release our first one publicly, just so you can get a feel for what that is.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to be doing That's So Sweet Life of Hannah Montana, the most ambitious crossover of all time.
Yes, and we are so thrilled for that. So that's going to be free, just to give you a little taste. And then other things include longer form content, bonus episodes, like full-length scripts, radio plays, things like that. There's a tier where you can give us a detour that we have to watch, and not have to, we get to. We get to watch
it and comment
on it on the episode. And finally, for the biggest tier, the $50 tier, if you love us that much, you get to come on the show.
Yeah.
You get to come on. You get to watch something, we'll watch something as well, the same thing, and you get to talk about it on our Detour segment every week. So that's just a little taste of the things we have on Patreon. There's more, but it's just a place to have bonus content and a really great opportunity to, lend your support, which we could very much use and very, very much appreciate.
Absolutely.
We just appreciate the support so far,
Yeah.
Just listening, and if you can't support us financially through Patreon, if you follow us or if you like us on Facebook, Instagram.
Or rate and review on iTunes.
Yeah, just engaging with us, sharing our posts, tell a friend about us. That would be such a huge help. We would really appreciate it. And we love you all for going with us on this journey.
Yeah.
This
Thank
10
you for
episode
sticking
journey.
around for 10 episodes.
Exactly. We very much appreciate it. Thank you. So that's sort of our big announcement. We hope it was worth it. Bonus content. Think of it as more bonus content to consume. Greenlit. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for Greenlit. Alrighty.
Now for the fun stuff.
Now to get to back to our regularly scheduled programming. Actually, back to our newly scheduled programming, because we finally have some iTunes reviews to read.
Yay! Keep them coming.
This is just an example of what you can do to put yourself on this show. So, Lauren, do you want to start off with our first one?
All right, our first one is from Super Boffia Boy, no idea who that is, entitled, You Don't Know Pain, ... Until you've had some kids record a podcast in their closet above your bedroom for months. Jackson, I don't want to make your giant head any bigger, so here's some roasting. Jackson is almost as good at acting as he is at Mario Party, and he's terrible at Mario Party. There's an asterisk that says Jax did win 50-turn Mario Party, but that doesn't count.
Fair.
Then he goes back to the review and says, I love Jackson and I love the pod. A pleasure to know these creative kids and happy to know they're making magic on the second floor of Mega House.
So,
thanks, Super Boffia Boy.
Super Boffia Boy. Could be Nick, could be another one of our housemates just pretending to be Nick. Yeah, but thank you so much for that review. We very much appreciate it. Thank you for commenting on my big head. It is huge.
It is.
That's a fact. And
it's a family trait.
50-turn Mario Party was a trip. That was a fun time.
I did not participate. And
yeah,
I'm glad
maybe next time.
No.
Okay, so now for our second and final review from Hunter Alley, and I think this is from my friend Hunter. Hannah, if you will.
Hannah.
Title, I'm here to roast. Asterisk, clears throat. Jackson, you're built like my kitchen table. Dense, beautifully crafted, and made out of wood. Word, in parentheses.
That's his middle name.
Yes, Woodward is my middle name. Just had to get that off my chest, but well wishes to you and Lauren with the podcast. So,
thanks, Hannah.
Hannah, thank you so much. It's so great to have some things to read.
Yay!
Some reviews to read. So thank you so much to Hannah. Thank you so much to Nick.
If you want your review to be read, feel free to roast Jackson or leave your detour of the week, and we'll read it.
Yes, we will, just like we read these. Okay. So now we're going to talk about our Detours of the Week. Our Detours of the Week is something we have consumed over the past week. Movie, TV show, book, 10-year-old video game, audiobook, anything that you can imagine that we have consumed. Should I go first?
Yeah.
I'll go first. Okay, so as many of the world has been watching, I, so too, watched Hamilton the Musical, the recorded stage production of Hamilton the Musical on Disney+. Now,
yes.
Full disclosure, Lauren and I were lucky enough. We did, and we were very, very, very fortunate to get tickets right at the right time. We were able to get them for face value.
Yeah.
And it was right before it got huge, so we were able to sort of see it in person back when it was first on Broadway. It was a transformative experience then, and now, number one, I want to say a huge thing that I love about this is just the accessibility of theater. Let's just give some snaps for that. I am a fiend for theater accessibility, as I've mentioned before, and this is just another great way, because especially with these big Broadway shows, especially something as popular as Hamilton, there's such a barrier to able to see it.
For sure.
And I hope this just continues a trend for this being more and more widely available for things like that.
Well, and especially too, Hamilton is so big, like, people are still going to go see Hamilton.
Yeah.
But it was so hard to get tickets, to see the original cast. It's just great that there's a recording out there of the original cast.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really, really cool experience. So, I'm going to start off. I cried. I did. I cried many double digits or amounts of times I honestly cried at this musical. It's so beautiful. And the story is so great. The characters are so rich. Songs, bangers. Story, delightful. Acting, incredible. Writing, scrumptious. It was, I did write that down. That wasn't off the dome. But it was all great. And to see it again was just a lovely experience. Thank God we had all the lights off in the room when we watched it. Because I was literally sobbing my eyes out. It was great. And like I said, the acting is great. And now, I know it's been going around on Twitter and on social media. Some people are dragging Lin-Manuel Miranda for his acting. And to a certain extent, I get it. I understand there are times where he definitely sort of comes off as maybe a bit of overacting. I personally, and this might just be bias because I was able to see it in person, I think that part of the overacting, whether intentional or not, really did... it was part of the character in a way. Like, that was Hamilton. He wore his heart on his chest. He emotions everywhere, I think that was a part of...
He emotions everywhere.
Yeah, he emotions everywhere. There was this picture going around of during It's Quiet Uptown, when another song that was the song I cried the most at, for sure. But, anywho, there's a song where Philippa Sue, the actress playing Eliza, is right next to Lynn, and she has like this stone face with like a single tear coming down, and his face is just, like, twisted in, like, this anguish. And people were using that as an example of, like, that's, well, he's so overacting, whatever. Which, once again, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but to me, that read as two different people going through grief in two different ways.
Absolutely. Well, and I feel like the way Hamilton's portrayed in this show, Hamilton is someone who, like, feels with his whole self. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
He does, yeah.
Another thing I wanted to say, I remember when the show first came out, a lot of criticism for Lin-Manuel Miranda was about his singing.
Yeah.
And I feel like the argument I always made was that, like, Hamilton in real life had a disadvantage because he was an immigrant and he was not wealthy. So I think that it's almost representative of wealth in a way, that he is a rapper as opposed to a singer, that he found an effective way to communicate that wasn't singing.
That's really interesting.
Like,
I never thought about that.
I mean, I don't know if it's intentional, but sure. I found that to be a very symbolic thing because, you have, like, characters like Aaron Burr who came from wealthier families, and of course Leslie Odom Jr. is an incredible singer. Yeah. And they always go toe-to-toe, And Hamilton just communicates in a very different way from Aaron Burr. And I think in my mind, that's because they came from different backgrounds. And it just shows Hamilton's scrappiness in that. Yeah,
young, scrappy, and hungry,
that's
as
right.
he says. So there's another thing that I would be remiss? What's the proper word?
Remiss, yeah,
remiss,
I think.
Not to mention. And it's the fact that this portrayal does not really dive into some of the darker sides of the Founding Fathers' history.
Yes.
The fact that many of them were slave owners. A lot of those negative things that it doesn't dive into. And I think that's a valid criticism, and I think that's something that definitely should be talked about, because it's not talked about enough throughout our history books, throughout just our learning when we're young and coming up. But to a certain extent, I don't think that's what Hamilton is trying to do. I think I read this awesome Vox article that sort of talks about Hamilton really is like a fan fiction. It's like a way for Lin-Manuel Miranda and people of color to sort of reclaim this narrative through like a new lens. And you see that because all of the lead actors, of course, are people of color, besides King George, but that's intentional that he's white. So
and, Samuel Sabery.
Yes, and once again, another villain. But it's sort of a way to reclaim it. And at the end of the day, it's not meant to be perfectly historically accurate. And I think if we try to view it through that lens, of course it's not going to be exactly up to what it was. you know?
Yeah,
And this
I
is a
feel
much
like,
longer conversation that we could talk about for a long time.
We
but those
talked
are
about
just
this last night.
We did. It was 2 a.m.
It was.
But, you know, what better time to have a deep discussion about
But,
art?
you know, but I mean, if you're listening to this and you're confused because your history classes taught you nothing, as most of ours did, and you feel like, oh, I don't understand why the Founding Fathers were so racist, I highly recommend reading Stamped from the Beginning, which I am reading right now. Everyone is racist.
Yeah.
Everyone in history is racist that you love.
And I think one more thing about that, and I'll move on to one more quick point before Lauren does her detour. But I think we can't rely on other people to educate us in those ways. We have to rely on ourselves. We especially can't rely on people of color to educate us on issues like that. You know, it's not their job. We should be doing the work on our own. And, you know, to a certain extent, you could argue, sure, portraying them in a way that spreads it to so many people could be damaging, but that's a larger conversation. I said my 2 cents. Yada yada. So, one more thing. I love how the ending, so spoiler alert if you haven't seen Hamilton, fast forward 15 seconds. The ending really gives Eliza a stage that, like, is so beautiful and so perfect. And someone made this comment, I think I saw it on Twitter or something, that the musical is called Hamilton, and it's not called Alexander Hamilton, and I probably intentionally, because at the end you realize that it's almost just as much Eliza's story as it is Alexander's story.
Yeah.
You know, and just all the things that she did. Philippa Sue is so good. God,
she's so good.
She's so good. The acting is incredible. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna start crying again, so I won't. But just wanted to bring that point up. Hamilton on Disney Plus. Watch it. It's really great. It's a great way that theater is becoming more accessible. Thank you. Let's do more.
Yay.
Okay. Lauren.
All right. I did just realize we might have to we were going to talk about Spirited Away as our together detour, but we might need to make that a bonus thing. So yay, more bonus content.
True.
For you guys. So my detour of the week, I finally started Westworld. I've been meaning to watch Westworld from the moment we got HBO in this house. When it was split, you know, it's now split between 7 people, but it was split between 5 people, which is more affordable than the $15 a month. So yeah, Westworld. If you don't know the concept of it, it is a sci-fi show about an Old West theme park, essentially, filled with robot hosts, like AI hosts, where wealthy people come to live out their fantasies that are often violent or heroic. So essentially, when someone first goes to Westworld, right, they go in and they can choose whether or not to be a white hat or a black hat. So they literally choose a white or black cowboy hat, meaning that, you know, they're probably going to go the hero route or the villain route in their, I guess, quest. And you can walk through, you can interact with any of the people in Westworld you want, and they will lead you on all these different storylines. So the problem is that the robots are starting to become aware of their surroundings. In the very first episode, there's an update, like a software update that allows them to sort of have some semblance of access to their, like, former selves when they've been, you know, basically rebooted each day as new guests come in and they sort of start their loop over. So they start to become more or less aware of the nature of the world they're in and the nature of who they are and what everyone around them is doing, which is, of course, very concerning for the people who run the park, but really interesting for us. Yeah, what else? Yeah, it's just a very cool idea, and it really brings to mind what the future of, like, AI rights could look like.
Yeah. And,
you know, if you know something is a robot, does that make it okay to, like, viciously murder it? You know what I mean? Like, so,
especially when it's a robot so close to a normal human being.
Exactly. So, yeah, so I just think that's a really cool thing. I'm only 4 episodes in, and they're hour-long episodes, so I'm 4 hours in. And in addition, I also want to talk about Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins is incredible in everything he does. But in this, I just think his character is so interesting. He's sort of the person who had the original concept of Westworld and first went about designing all of these characters, and he's now the park director. And he's just so good because on one hand, you know, he's like, you want him to be the one to see his vision through because it's his project and his thing. And, like, there are people who want to do all these tacky shows with a bunch of Native Americans that, like, aren't as good, maybe. And he wants to do this deeper narrative. But then at the same time, he definitely sees the robots as purely robots, you know, and he doesn't have a problem with people. Like, at one point, he just goes up and, like, takes a scalpel to someone's head just to be like, see, they don't feel anything, you know, and it's just... like, I just don't know if I should root for him or not, and that's just really great on his part. And then, you know, there's also this whole intrigue of a deeper level in the game. So, Ed Harris's character he's just called, like, the man in the black hat. So we know...
he's bad.
Yeah. So we know he's, in real life, a philanthropist. At one point, someone sees him in Westworld and recognizes him and was like, oh, your foundation saved my sister's life. And he's like, shut up. I'm on vacation.
Shut up.
Do not speak to me about my real life. But it's interesting because he's clearly at least pretends to be a very good guy in real life. But in Westworld, he's like horrible. He kills people just for fun, you know. And he is seeking a deeper level in the game. It's like a maze he's heard about, and it's something I'm not at a point where I really know what it is yet, but it's something that he says has higher stakes. Maybe you can actually die. I think that he's looking for, like, a version of this where he can be even more depraved. But it's just really intriguing. The visuals are beautiful. There's this awesome juxtaposition between the Old West and, like, the super high-tech sci-fi. It's very, very good. I will say, if you're queasy about violence and also lots of nudity, because the robots, for the most part, when they're not, like, in Westworld, they just have them be nude just because they're like, I mean, they're like robots, you know?
Sure.
It's like, it would be like having a naked Barbie doll around.
Sure.
So, yeah, so if you're queasy about that, you know, maybe not the show for you, but I just think it's incredible so far. It really draws you in from the first moment, and you can watch it on HBO Max.
Yes. Okay, that's half an hour of an introduction.
Yeah, that's so much.
But I mean, this is our 10th episode. Do we want to include it all?
Okay.
Maybe. We'll talk. We'll talk off air.
So anyway, this week we are going to be reading The News Cycle by Ben Howard. Mm-hmm. It is a dark comedy. It is satirical. So stay tuned. And we'll be back.
We'll be back. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Green Light.
Green light. Green light?
Yes. I don't think Blake's been in here since we've, like, made that an official, we do it every
this is
segment.
a new bit.
Yeah. Well, Blake,
on.
Congrats on joining the new bit. As you know, I'm Jackson.
I'm Lauren.
We have Blake Benson here today, as you all know.
Hello.
And we have William Leach here.
Back again.
As well. Yes, sir. So today we are reading the play The News Cycle by Ben Howard. And for episode 10.
Episode 10.
The centenary
Milestone.
episode, as Blake said earlier.
Yeah.
Episode 10.
We've been doing this for 100 years.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like you're a writer or anything, you know.
I didn't know that centennial meant 10th until I was this many years old.
Well, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
That's the joke. It doesn't.
It's like 100.
Yep.
I'm dumb.
Yep.
I love that.
Therein lies the humor of this. Okay.
All right.
Without further ado, let's do a little bit of just what we're going to be doing. So I, Jackson, am going to be reading various Meryl roles, a couple throughout.
I, Lauren, will be playing two anchor women who are cookie cutters, perfect cutouts of a media pundit, the embodiment of everything is fine on cable news.
Blake, I will be reading for the production manager, the embodiment of the establishment in cable news.
And I am Will, and I'll be reading action lines.
Stage directions.
Stage directions this time.
It's a play.
Shit.
This is my moment.
Hi, I'm Will, and I'll be reading stage directions.
I'm not cutting it out. I refuse to.
Fine.
Alrighty. I guess then, without further ado, let's dive right in.
The News Cycle, a 10-minute play by Ben Howard. Setting: A newsroom with a standard wide table, digital background, wide cameras, and other news filming equipment for a cable news network show. The scrolling background reads the title of the news network, America in Modest. This newsroom is the blandest of the bland and the most moderate of the moderate in both layout and color scheme. At Rise. America in Modest newsroom, 3:47 a.m., Monday morning. There is a small ember flaying out behind the desk. Production extras are all rushing about trying to get everything ready for the broadcast, taping out cable, checking mics, etc., etc. Meanwhile, Todd, the intern, is trying to put out the fire as discreetly as he can, which isn't much. Enter production manager along with anchorwoman number 1. Production manager is confident, looking about a ship well kept and maintained. Anchorwoman 1 is nervous. This is their first day after screen testing and their first truly live broadcast. Production manager is rattling off proper decorum, neutral stances, and other etiquette for newscasters.
Now, I know the brief didn't cover everything that happened in the past 12 hours, so bear with me while I run this down with you. Wall Street is currently being set on fire by protesters. Yeah, I know, we'll have time to hash out a narrative later. But the important thing to consider is, how is the Rust Belt dealing with it? I got the graphics team to draft something up, and it's going to demonstrate how many people are tired of fighting. So keep this number in mind. 33%. 33. Alright? That's 1/3. 1/3 of the country is going to be on nobody's side, which is the market we play to. Not on the side of the protesters, nor on the police, which is good. It means we're staying on target here. So, it's going to be the first breaking news segment with the Klan acquiring the state capital, what their demands are, how many good people are actually in the Klan. Oh yeah, current tolls taken on by the ongoing virus pandemic, and what scientists are possibly over-exaggerating. Also, try not to let any of the news get you down. The person before you made a bit of a mess of things earlier, in case you didn't hear. Hey, you get any of that?
Is something smoking in here? Like it's on fire or something?
No, nothing's on fire.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there an issue here, or do I need to file
No,
something
there's
in
not an
HR?
issue here, okay? There aren't any fires or anything to put out. Somebody just probably made popcorn in the break room or something.
But the break room was all the way back there.
Hey, believe what you want to believe, but there's no fire, and if there is one, it's not as bad as you think it is.
But doesn't that kind of run against the idea of an objective truth of there being a fire in the first place? If I can just believe whether or not there is a fire, and even if there is one, it's probably not doing anything, then why do anything? I have some issues with that.
Exactly. If you have issues, now is certainly not the time to raise them.
But
But what? Tell me again what it is you wanted in that screen test.
I don't see what this has to do with my complaints.
Tell me what it is that you wanted in that screen test. I want to hear it again.
I wanted to be the one telling the news. I wanted to be the trusted face that people could come home to, get some sense of comfort and stability from the world.
Yes, good. I like that. Stability. Keep that in your pocket. Now, tell me, what are we going to do in the next several minutes?
Report the news?
Think bigger than that. What are you about to do for all those people watching you at home from all sides of the aisle?
Tell them there is no fire.
And if there is one, it's not as bad as they think it is.
I think I get it.
I'm glad we're finally speaking the same language. Remember what old Walter used to say? Keep it modest, America.
Thanks. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all. Now, go tell the news. We're on an 8.
Production manager goes to a directing chair behind the camera and puts on a headset with attached microphone. Anchorwoman number 1 crosses to behind the desk and finds Todd, the intern, working manically behind the desk, snuffing the last flames and embers out.
Hot damn, that burned!
What burned?
What?
Pause. The production manager's glaring daggers at him.
Oh, I meant that sure did, churn my pain receptors? Because, wow,
He rams his foot into the desk.
Stub my toe! Oh, fuck, oh my god, that actually hurt that time. Oh god, the pain!
Oh
Why
god,
did I
no,
do
shh,
that?
It's
Oh,
okay.
jeez, help.
It's okay. Hey,
Actually, I have a lot
please
of
look
pain.
at me.
Please
It's
make it
gonna
stop.
be alright.
After Todd stubs his toe, he jumps around holding his knee up, trying to soothe the pain. While Anchorwoman number 1 is trying to calm him down, Todd starts knocking things off the desk, knocking over lights, etc., etc. Finally, Todd falls on the floor in front of the desk, and Anchorwoman 1 goes over to him.
Hey, please look at me. It's gonna be alright. You don't need to just hop around like that. No need to. Oh god, he fell down. Are you alright? Are you gonna be okay?
I really think I dislocated my toe.
No, he didn't.
I retract my statement.
What? No, you don't.
And now I don't.
Let me handle this, please. Remember the mantra.
You're right. You're going to be fine because you probably didn't dislocate your toe. It's probably just a little bruised. Alright?
You know, Your absolute lack of conviction in any absolute truth is inspiring. Really, truly it is. I hope you stay around here for a long time. Knock 'em dead on the air.
Wow, thank you. That's very kind of you. What's your name?
My name's Todd. Todd the intern.
Oh, okay. That's not your last name, right?
What, the intern? Oh, no. That's just a title I have accepted as a result of allowing my value to be determined by the place I work at, and thus allowing my employers to further exploit me for my labor.
I'm sorry, what?
Nothing. He said his last name was hard to pronounce.
Production manager begins rushing Todd off stage.
Okay, that just felt oddly specific as well.
We have 2 minutes and 37 seconds before we're slated for the air. Do you really want to go on speaking the truth right now?
I guess I don't?
Spoiler alert, you don't. Yes, thank you.
They walk back to their manager chair as anchorwoman number 1 goes to their station. As they're walking back,
Word of advice, and I know you already know this, but don't show any emotion on that camera. Play to the 33%. Got it?
General American, I know.
lights change as anchorwoman number 1 sits behind the desk getting ready, reviewing their notes. Production extras move into position with lights, cameras, etc. Todd, the intern, comes back on behind production manager, trying to be quiet. Graphics on the screen behind anchorwoman number 1 begin to change into the logo for America in Modest, as production manager begins the countdown to live broadcast along with the sound of the announcement of America in Modest.
We are live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Live from our Cincinnati, Ohio studio, this is America in Modest.
Good morning, nation. I am Lauren, your host this morning. It is currently 4 in the morning on this beautiful day in Cincinnati, and it looks like the east, south, and west coasts are supposed to be getting some historic rainfall and tropical storm formations, the likes of which have never been seen by climate scientists. More on that later in the hour, but the good news right now, companies are doing everything they can. The first item up for our breaking news segment are the protests at Wall Street over the past 48 hours following the record federal bailout of massive banking firms such as Bank of America and Wells Fargo. Many protesters have cited their claims of the alleged bailouts being distributed to the top executives of these companies. To get a more complete version of the story, however, we check in with our gracious sponsor, the current CEO of Bank of America.
On one of the screens adjacent to the news desk, we see a recording of Ken Lewis play on the screen, news panel style. He is stone-faced, ready for the hard questions, but it's all a facade.
Good morning to you, Mr. Lewis.
Good morning to you too. Really great looking suit you've got on for your first broadcast, by the way.
Oh, wow, thanks. Now, obviously, people are rather upset with your board's decision to advocate more for bonuses and emergency pay for both you and your top executives at the bank, while many working-class families are not seeing the same benefits and claim they aren't seeing any emergency bailouts at all. Police cars have been set on fire, bank windows have been busted, and many are chanting, "Enough is enough." Yet a recent poll at Gallup found that a third of the country is tired of the infighting and merely wish for the country to return to peace. What are your thoughts on the matter, Mr. Lewis?
Thank you for that question, Anna. What a nice question, by the way, can I just say? Really beats having people yell at you, you know?
Yes, it's just...
I mean, these people, they're not sending their best out of this movement, you know? People stomping on police cars, they're breaking windows, and they're rude, you know? You know what one of these protesters yelled at me? I said, do you know what one of these protesters yelled at me?
I'm sorry, Mr. Lewis. What did they say?
They said, "We demand living wages." I mean, what? What kind of sentiment is that? How radical is that? Just letting everybody have the opportunity to have a wage that can afford them basic amenities? That completely destroys our American dream, doesn't it? Doesn't it?
I can certainly see both sides of the issue here.
And the rest of the media just loves enabling these people, saying, if you didn't take advantage of the bailouts and leave your workers out to dry, causing an inevitable class uprising against a wealthy and powerful elite that has been sucking the reserves of the federal government dry for decades, we wouldn't be here. And that's just insanity to me. Isn't it to you?
Yes, I believe in everything, in moderation, including human rights.
Exactly! I mean, if we just keep giving poor people with no money more money, where's my money by the end of it? Think about it. We say we care for the plights of poor people. Philanthropic rich people such as myself already donate millions of dollars to feed the hungry, find homes for the homeless, and generally care for the well-being of my fellow man. Why change that system? I said, why change that system?
Oh, right. Right, Mr. Lewis. There are definitely two sides to every story. Thank you for talking to us this morning. We hope we can continue to graciously represent you in the media, Mr. Lewis.
Both myself and the investors look forward to that representation. Thank you.
Video recording shuts off. Defaults to America in modest screen.
Are we still recording?
Going live to Grand Dragon Charleston in 5, 4,
okay,
3,
we're still doing this. Okay,
2,
wow, just gotta make
1.
compromises here. Okay, I can do this.
Screen now jumps to recording of Grand Dragon Charleston standing by with his hood hanging behind his head. He looks pensively pissed and pissedly pensive. In the video, he is standing in front of a burning cross that is positioned in front of a government building, with other armed Klansmen with assault rifles.
Joining us live now in from the state capitol in Ohio, here is Grand Dragon Charleston. He is an accomplished member of the KKK, and while he has been noted for his dedication to the cause, he has also been a regular contributor to local security. Who wrote for the teleprompter? That's truly...
Back on screen.
Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. So, Grand Dragon Charleston, we had some questions for you this morning, but first I just wanted to say that thank you for being on the program with us.
Well, of course. I always have a good time on the show with y'all. You doing okay this morning? Normally the other hosts don't have this hard of a time with their guests.
No, it's just I smelled something in our studio. Kind of like something was burning.
Burning? I know a thing or two about that, actually. You know, with the cross burnings and all.
Oh, no,
We're
God,
very
nothing
good
like
at
that.
burning
Something
crosses.
just burned popcorn in one of our offices, so that's why I was reacting the way I did.
Oh. Why is someone making popcorn in your studio right now?
Oh, man, I don't know. Got me there, Duke.
It's Dragon. Grand Dragon, actually.
Oh, You know what? No, we're not both siding this issue, right? Like, we're not seriously giving the fucking Klan a platform for them to speak,
hey, what
right?
an unkempt mouth you have
Oh,
there.
my unkempt mouth. Your whole occupation is yelling slurs at people you don't like, in case you didn't see the irony there.
Oh, Christ. We have another personal conviction scenario on our hands, folks. Prepare for the replacement. What are you doing? You are antagonizing our guest on air.
Oh, we're supposed to be worried about antagonizing the antagonists of America? Can you please elaborate as to why it suddenly became political to attack white supremacists? You know, maybe we wouldn't have so much moral ambiguity with these issues if you were willing to call shit like it is. As fucking evil.
While Anchor Woman number 1 is going on their diatribe, the extras scramble to find the conflict resolution device. Production manager waits patiently, like they've seen this play out before. Meanwhile, Anchor Woman number 1 marches around the studio playing to the camera.
That's it. No good people on that side. No extenuating circumstances that make people racist as hell. Just awful people. That's it. Maybe the Klan wouldn't look so attractive to people if we didn't decide to make their plight so complex and relatable like they were a fucking Sopranos character.
You're going to regret this. You really are.
Now, this is some fake news right here. Everyone has a story, including us. We're human.
You don't
just
get
like
it.
You.
You really don't get it, do you? You don't get to play the, well, I'm a human too card just because someone is calling you out on horrific crimes against other humans. You and other people like yourself terrorize people not like you for the sake of your own empowerment and ethnocentric interests. And you can't even comprehend the idea of others having rights similar to yours because that strips you of your power. You have sacrificed your own humanity by stripping others of their humanity. So don't even degrade all of us other humans by calling yourself that.
This is so beyond hypocritical. You and Antifa constantly ask for free speech, yet censor us.
Oh my
like you
God, you were
It's
really stuck on
ridiculous.
Antifa, huh, asshole? Guess what? We went to war with fascists 70 years ago. Nobody in Antifa is asking for people not to speak their mind. They're stopping people like you from making sure that only your voice rules the government. It's almost like the irony just slips right off you like popsicles on a stick during the summer, except guess what?
Wow.
People like fucking popsicles and they don't like you.
Great. Hope your advertisers like this rant from this newscaster, assholes. Grand Dragon Charleston signing out.
He tries putting on his hood, but fails a few times, and then finally storms off to the crowd of other Klansmen. Video feed shuts off. After the video feed with Charleston shuts off, we see video projections of Anchor Woman number 1 looking down the barrel of the camera, staring dumbfounded. They didn't expect this. They take a moment.
Wow. Okay. Normally this is where we would cut to commercial break, except this isn't normal programming. None of this is normal. I wish we could just say it was, but it's not, clearly. Sometimes it might be. easier to just sweep it under the rug and say, oh, well, that's politics, and go about our lives buying the same shit, saying the same shit, and ultimately not giving a shit. Except you and I can't afford to do that anymore, can we? Half of America right now is living paycheck to paycheck. Half of us. Look to the person on your left and look to the person on your right. If you don't have that, then just go outside and look at people walking. Chances are that person may not even have enough to keep gas on in their homes. Yet that's just business as usual, right? Classical American dream. Great when it works for them. Works for people like me. I was told American Modest was a news network made for people like me. People who wanted to see both sides of everything.
On this, we see one of the extras find the conflict resolution device, i.e. a tranquilizer gun, and they begin sacrosanctly handing it off to other extras down a long line until it finally reaches the production manager.
That everyone has stories worth telling, but...
We see smoke drift across the stage, faint light of fire off stage. Production manager has snuck up behind anchorwoman number 1, aiming the tranquilizer gun at the back of their head and fires into the back of their head, cutting them off mid-sentence.
Christ alive. What a show. Hope that helped ratings. Alright, someone get the replacement and cut to commercial. Get us off the feed. Christ, that was a gamble. Hope that worked. Hey, can someone get Sleeping Beauty out of here and take them out back? We need an NDA stat.
One of the extras rushes over, drags anchorwoman number 1 off stage. It takes a hot minute. Production manager hurries them along. After that, production manager looks off stage to see extra coming along with replacement. They run to them. Anchorwoman number 2 comes on stage.
So, I don't know if anyone gave you a briefing yet or not, but here's what happens in the last 12 hours.
I'm sorry, is it smoky in
No,
here?
no, there is no smoke, and repeat after me. There is no fire. Say it.
There is no fire.
End of play.
Green light.
Green light.
Okay.
I tried to do it. See, I did it soft the first time we tried to do this. Now
Okay.
I'm just doing really fast.
Yep. We are here with our writer of the week, Ben Howard, the playwright. I was about to say writer. I don't know. Our writer of the week of
writer
the
works.
news cycle. And welcome, Ben.
Hi, nice to be here.
Glad to have you here. How are you doing today on this? It's a Sunday, the day we're recording this. So how is your Sunday going so far?
It's going pretty good. Like I was saying a minute ago, it's really just kind of like the days sort of blending into this weird amalgamation of like, oh right, yesterday was a holiday versus like, I guess I go to work today. Like, so that's kind of the general vibe.
Work is the only thing that's allowing me to keep track of the days. Otherwise, it could be a Tuesday, a Friday. Days don't matter, truthfully.
Truly,
anymore.
up until yesterday, I was unemployed for 3.5 months. So Jackson working was really the only thing that was keeping me straight.
The old
It's
clock over here.
Yeah.
It's like someone's relative approximation of like, oh right, my roommate or like my friend's going to work today, so I guess I have to like keep up with them and make sure they're not dead.
Exactly.
Cool. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, okay, I know it's a weekday. I can pare it down from there. I need to check up with them. It's a whole thing. But all right, Ben, how about we start? How about you start us off and just give us your screenwriter origin story?
Oh boy, that sounds so much more epic than anything I'm actually like worthy of.
Well, then we expect it to be epic, Ben. Please.
It was a dark and dreary night in November. It was, I believe, the 5th. No, nothing
That's
like that.
perfect. That's exactly what we want.
So I, like most people, I really had a penchant for writing, like from a very early age, but I wasn't really able to come to terms with that. So like for me, it all started when I was like probably around 8 years old, when I was just like writing fanfic after fanfic of like a bunch of different video games I was playing. And, obviously like when you read something from like when you were like I like to think of like if you were like before 13 or 14 years old, just like throw it in a dumpster fire as soon as you can. Because so it really started from when I was an early age, and I had always been a storyteller, and I had always been kind of a performer because, well, you know, anybody that's in theater will tell, even if they haven't been in like a lot of community theater or anything like that, it's just like, oh, of course they're gonna react like this. It's Drama King time. So it really kind of started right around my senior year of high school, at least my sort of inclination for like playwriting and screenwriting. Except, you know, like most high schoolers, I had no idea like what I was doing, like at all. So from there, I went into college with the idea that like if I can talk to enough people with like an actual idea of what I was trying to do, it would sort of like magically work itself out. And I guess my real like professional start, if you can even really call it that, was last fall, before, you know, the pre-corona days, as most historians will call it now. I had my first fully produced full-length show, which was, you know, as most playwrights and screenwrites or, you know, any kind of writer, if someone adapts your work, it's a very strange feeling going through with that for the first time.
Absolutely. Congratulations, by the way, on that milestone.
Thank you. Yeah. It hasn't been published or anything like that, but the name of the show was called The Boy Who Couldn't Speak. And it was an autobiographical piece basically about my life dealing with autism and ADHD as a dual diagnosed learning disorder. And a lot of it was autobiographical, but also a lot of it was like sort of this abstract treatment of learning disability as a whole. And it made ADHD and autism like actual characters. So cool. That was kind of where I got my real start into it. And that's where like I sort of got this bug to just keep writing and writing and writing. So I guess that kind of covers it.
Cool.
Yeah.
No,
that's great. There's so many things in there that you said that I could speak on, but I'll go with the first one that entered my mind. I find it so interesting because, you know, we asked this question we asked to all of our guests who come on. And I feel like everyone has a moment of like, you know, the first couple years, the first however long I was writing, I hated it. I threw it all away, never want to look at it again. And I just think that's so interesting. That's kind of like an integral part of like the writer's journey, is like the stuff that you start writing is going to be bad. And it's okay that it's bad, and you just have to keep writing and it will get better. And I love to hear that, because I feel like everyone who we asked, it's like, yeah, don't read any of my early stuff because you'll hate it. It's like,
oh, absolutely.
You know, like that's probably true, but it's so necessary that's like, that's such a cool part of the journey itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to think of it as running my head into the brick wall and seeing like if any less blood keeps coming out of my head on the next attack. That's how I always think of it anytime I put out a terrible first draft of like literally anything.
Exactly, yeah.
So, speaking of drafts, we'll get into some questions about the play specifically.
Nice, Lauren. Good transition.
So, pretty much all of the characters in the script, except for, you know, the intern, I guess, like we get a first name, but not a real last name, you know. So you pretty much keep all of these characters nameless for the majority of the play, aside from, you know, the people that we're interviewing, like the Grand Dragon Charleston and the CEO of Bank of America. Mm-hmm. So what were you hoping to accomplish by keeping these characters nameless?
It's kind of a complicated, well, that's like the most writerly thing I think I could ever say, and that it's a complicated question. So I had this weird fixation with nameless characters because the last show that I had written and had fully produced, autism and ADHD were like masked, right? They were these nameless characters that walked around, and, you know, they were these like abstract representations of a thing that everyone knows and everyone knows exists, but they don't really know how to use language to describe it. So for the news cycle, for me, I had this really abstract idea of like this political discourse that I couldn't always put a name to. So it started as kind of a placeholder, but then the more I realized as I was writing it, I was like, it actually makes more sense, at least from the thematic material that I'm talking about, if I can leave them nameless so that way it can relate to everyone. Everyone will know, like, everyone will know that, like, or at least the goal is that everyone will know, like, this news anchor person is a representation of, like, moderate news media that, like, don't actually take a stand on literally anything. They just go on based on what the advertisers want out of that news format. So, like, that was kind of the general idea behind it, if that, like, makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely.
That
I
does,
think sort of the effect that it had for us was, like, because they were nameless, that sort of gave us the clue that they were going to be almost like satirical, caricaturish versions of these people. You know, that sort of let me say, oh, got it. It's like, it's this type of person.
Yeah.
You know.
I also think there's something so interesting in, like, in naming something and, like, just the power of names in general. I feel like when you attach a name to someone or something, it almost adds a layer of intimacy to it. And I think with this, you know, especially keeping a lot of these either caricatures with, like, you know, even if you do kind of name like the Grand Charleston or the CEO of Bank of America, it's still very much removed. However, you have that moment where you have the person playing the anchorman or anchorwoman, you have them state their real name, and I think they're the character who I obviously empathize the most with, and who's sort of our lens for this whole thing. So we're able to almost attach to them more than we are to the other characters, which I think is good, because I don't think you want us to humanize any of these other characters at all. Maybe Todd. I like Todd, but
I like Todd.
I empathize with Todd for sure.
Yeah.
But
interesting. It's interesting too, because one of the main inspirations that I took to heart in the past, like couple of years, especially after graduating from undergrad, was I'm not even going to pretend to know the original playwright's name, but Everyman, like the Everyman trope.
Yes. Yeah. I'm definitely read that one a couple times, I think, in my undergrad career.
Like it really stuck out to me because it was the first play that I had really read that was like a fully developed sort of Campbellian circle sort of play where, like, the main character is somebody that could literally be anybody, and it was just like such a, especially when it was like when you were reading it, it was very different than just like kind of being familiar with the trope. So that was kind of the inspiration for why some of the characters went nameless too, I think.
No, yeah, I definitely hear that. And yet there's a slight diversion. There's a really cool, actually, sort of new adaptation of that play, Everyman. And I don't know, I think it's called Everybody or something. I might be butchering that. But essentially, there are 5 actors, and they each, I think, pick a name out of a hat at the beginning of every show, and that's like the character they play that day.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's like kind of a really cool, I think a really fun challenge as an actor, but just sort of, an adaptation of that, which I thought I would mention. Yeah. So sort of back to your play.
So, you know, of course the issues in this are very dark and very serious, but you chose this dark comedy, kind of satirical, even farcical at times style. So what was the motivation behind choosing this style as opposed to a more serious portrayal?
A lot of it has been based off of, you know, like we've been saying earlier, a lot of it had been based off of what I had been seeing in the news, but also a lot of it was based off of the things that were giving me a lot of inspiration, like my sort of artistic fuel, so to speak, which, God, that sounds pretentious. I'd been watching a lot of, like, I'd grown up on things like South Park, where it was like these very serious things were given like the most ridiculous characters to embody them. Like the, what's his name? Mr. Hanky, like singing about like the political miscegenation of America and like gentrification is like so dark, but it's so funny because it's this literal turd singing about like the current state of like the American idea, right?
Yeah.
I'd also been watching a lot of I've been watching a lot of things on the docuseries The 13th.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Which, most of America had been watching for the past couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully it got a little more recognition than Tiger King. But I've been watching things like that. I'd also been watching just all kinds of what people call fake news, when really it's just a comedy station or a comedian going on and just saying really sad facts while trying to be funny about it.
Yeah.
So things like John Oliver, Hassan Minhaj, those are kind of the catalysts for why I wanted to address that, because I think humor is, and it's kind of a cliche to say it now, but it's humor is the greatest sort of disguise for the truth that the truth can put on.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of why I wanted to go in that direction, as opposed to making it more of a tragedy, because then at that rate, it's okay, we get it. America's broken.
Yeah.
Can you please make us laugh?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of the reason why I wanted to lean that way as opposed to the other one.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think if you can show someone, hey, America is broken, and also make them laugh, I think that's almost makes them more open to hearing that America is broken, or hearing whatever idea you're trying to say. So I really like what you did with this.
Yeah.
I had an interesting, or I don't want to say I had an interesting question. That's hyping, gassing me up way too much, much more than I deserve. But so do you think this story changes at all if the main character, Anchorwoman / Anchorman, is a man or a woman? Do you think the story changes depending on the actor that is playing them? And if so, why or why not?
I think that is a really good question. I'm really just buttering you guys up with these compliments towards your questions.
I mean, I
now.
guess we'll take it. I don't know. I guess.
It's funny. I tried to make whenever I try to make any gender neutral character, it's I try to go into it as much as possible without a predisposed image of the person.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes when I was writing it, especially because in my opinion, 10-minute plays are so much harder than anything else. They're very, very difficult to me. So a lot of times I take a lot more time in deliberating what this image of this character is. And so, the anchor person, really sometimes, I almost felt like I was leaning into this feminine image, really. Mm. Especially because, anchor women, at least, in a lot of the sort of coverage of it I've seen, women have a, typically much harder time making it as an anchor person.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is true of most industries out there. So sometimes I couldn't help but just imagine, if this was an anchor woman, I think some of these things would read a little more. Mm-hmm. But other times it's kind of shown as this man's world, where it is a lot of things in film and television and a bunch of industries like that. So I guess I would kind of say that I hope it wouldn't necessarily change too much, but I guess depending on, God willing, if anybody ever actually performed it, it would change probably.
Yeah.
Just because, actors are they're such, just unique, wonderful little creatures / people.
See, you're buttering us up even more after that. Lauren and I are both actors. I don't know if or I guess if you've listened, you've probably heard us talk about it. But
yes, that was 100% interesting.
Well, perfect. Thank you very much. Then consider me buttered. But I thought it was really interesting, and I think it was partially because for our reading of this, Lauren's gonna be the one playing Anchorwoman.
Yes.
But one of the lines that stuck out to me that I think would make a big difference on if the character was played by a man or a woman, the line where Ken Lewis, or CEO of Bank of America, says, "Really great looking suit you've got on for your first broadcast, by the way." And I think that
that
line
could either be creepy or it could be man to man.
Yeah,
great looking suit.
And I also think recently, I mean, not in the this week, but in the past couple of months, we saw Bombshell, the movie
Well, that was
sort
more
of
than a couple months
dives
ago. We saw
into-
that in a movie theater.
Yeah, true. Ages,
Oh, really?
eons ago when we saw Bombshell in the movie theater. But I think, seeing that sort of informed, just thinking about that. And like you said, it almost gives an anchorwoman more of an uphill battle to climb than potentially like an anchorman, which I think is an interesting aspect of the story that I think kind of is there just because of the identity, potentially, of the person playing it.
Sure, yeah.
I'm going to act like I did that intentionally.
Well, we'll cut that
Wow,
out. You
amazing.
did it. Incredible that you did that completely intentionally.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about the ending. So obviously the anchor person...
Spoiler alerts for
right,
anyone
well,
who
I hope you
solely
didn't skip the play.
skips, the actual play.
But
If somebody hasn't made it to that part of the podcast.
Right,
Exactly, yeah.
So the anchor person stands up to the man and gets swiftly taken care of, right? So they get tranquilized and are replaced by someone who is the same as anchor woman or anchor man 1, except hair is a slightly different color. So what were you trying to say with this? And is standing up to the man hopeless?
That's really the question that we need to know.
Yeah. I think it's such a downer. I sometimes I just end a lot of my plays on downers, and sometimes I'm like, wow, you're just really sad today, aren't you? I think it's only hopeless when we continue to embolden the system that allows it to do that. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like the idea is, like the anchor person stands up to the production manager and like, the sort of forces that be in that world. And, they just get carted off away. And it's like, well, that didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the general idea is like, in short, yes, it's hopeless, but it's only hopeless if we allow it to continue going on for longer than necessary.
Yeah.
Because like the idea is like that anchor person could have easily just stood up and said, you know what? No, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be a part of this really awful charade of truth telling because, I'm standing up for like what I view as the objective truth. And at any point they could have opted to walk away from it and just not participate in it anymore and actively try to deconstruct it in some way, like either by getting a job somewhere else or, like starting something on their own or like calling for like active change. But because they kept like, going with the idea of like, oh, I can be like the next like Walter Cronkite or like somebody that everybody in America trusts, like something will change. But obviously if you keep feeding the animal that's going to eat you and just acting like it's not going to eat you, you're in for a very rude awakening. It's like kind of the idea that I wanted to go for. And obviously, it's very much up to the reader, the audience, whoever might see it as like, it's either hopeless or it could be hopeful, maybe not.
Yeah.
Because it also falls on the onus of the next anchor person to actually do something about it.
Yeah. So we're going to get into some questions about you as a human.
Just you.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Hope you're prepared mentally, emotionally, all of that.
Yeah.
I'm really gripping the armchairs that I'm in right now.
Good.
So first off, when you emailed us, you said that you weren't a seasoned writer.
Which, by the way, I think is so interesting because just hearing you talk about this and especially, reading your work, it like feels like you are, but I'll let Lauren continue.
But so we were wondering, what do you think makes a writer seasoned? Is it age? Is it experience?
Is it chili powder? Like, what are we working with?
Yeah.
It's a mix of garlic powder and like a basic philosophical amount of decency.
Okay, cool. I'll write that down. Actually,
yeah,
we cracked the code, folks.
I like to think of it as my sequel for chicken noodle soup for the soul.
There you go.
It's sort of that was a very like insecure thing when I emailed that. By the way, like that was very much like, oh, these people know more about what I'm talking, know more about what they're talking about than I do. So,
that's a good one, Ben.
But it's this very like this very insecure idea that like because I haven't been like produced at like the Rogers Theater, it's like, oh, I haven't like really been around the block just yet.
Yeah.
But it's also like based on just the fact that like I've really only had like one or two shows really produced. So it's like that kind of like really insecure idea, but it's also like based on the fact that like I really haven't had like a ton of feedback on my work, because like most writers, I am terrified of like when anybody that I like remotely admire reads my stuff, and it's like, oh God, they're gonna hate it.
I feel that.
Yeah.
This is why
So, like,
I'm an
that's
actor
kinda
now, and
like-
I don't read anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, so like that's kind of where that was coming from. To me though, if it's something that's like a little bit more about craft rather than like commercial success, it's really about like what instincts that writer sort of embodies and like what they're actually talking about, whether or not that writer is like really going after anything of substance and something that they really know about. Is kind of what I view as something that makes a writer really seasoned. I mean, the writer could literally be talking about like a playwright or screenwriter or, you know, anybody that's like writing a WordPress blog. Like they could be talking about anything, but as long as they're passionate, they clearly have done research and also like follow not like these really old archaic rules, but at least they like know like what makes a piece or a text like somewhat dynamic, then I consider that a well-seasoned writer.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I feel like you
Gosh.
sound pretty seasoned to me.
Yeah, it's you said so many things in that like just hits home, I feel like, for me, and I'm sure for you too, Lauren, as just general insecurities of artists, that it's like it's so hard because like, you know, I mean, we've both gotten a couple gigs while we've been out here in LA, and you know, Lauren's been doing it for longer than I have, acting, but have been doing it for what equates to a decent amount of time, I would say. But it's still so hard to be like, I call myself like an actor. Like if someone asks, what do you do? It's like, do I say that because that like I do that and I work towards that, but that's not necessarily how I make all of my money right now? Or is it like, you know, because that's what I'm passionate about and that's what I am, I just go for it. And it also feels like so pretentious sometimes. Be like, what are you? I'm like, I'm an actor. Yeah, especially
it's just like,
if
at
you
what
haven't
point
reached
do you
that.
feel like you're qualified? You know, it's like, do you have to have an Oscar? Like, do you, you know?
And even then,
then.
Yeah,
do you have to be like Stella Adler's like 7th removed grandchild?
Exactly.
It's like, especially because like during the pandemic, like right after I graduated from undergrad, it's like this really scary idea of like, well, I have a theater degree. That's cool, I guess.
Yup.
Like
you are preaching to the choir, Ben.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, and you know, this has just sparked a whole
thing.
Something inside of me for sure. But there's that whole issue of like just accessibility and things like that, and just generally like someone could have been writing for such a long time, and you know, just either based off of, you know, just not even bad circumstances, just like normal circumstances, just haven't been able to, you know, have anyone pick up their work or get it produced or get cast in something, whatever.
Or like you don't have a parent who is already a giant producer.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. You know, someone who could have just written a play out of the blue first time ever, but their dad's like a big time producer or something like that, and just immediately get picked up. So it's just, you know, there's that gray area there. It's like, how do you do that? But you know, we the Greenlight Podcast deem you officially a writer, Ben. If that
we're knighting you.
Yeah.
My heart's aflutter.
Beautiful.
You are now Sir Ben Howard.
Yes.
Oh God! Don't insult everybody else in the order of like whatever knights use that. 'Cause, man,
it's
they'd be rolling in their graves.
Yeah. Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart, Ben Howard. That's the order.
That's it.
Oh man.
So a little less serious question we have for you here. So you when you emailed us, you told us that you went to college in Arkansas. Just like tell us about Arkansas. Like, have you been to the Ozarks? Like, have you watched Ozark? Like, what can we glean from Arkansas from you, sir?
Well, let me tell you right now, I have not watched a single episode of Ozark.
Oof, me neither.
But I can safely tell you that everything that you know about cocaine dealers is like 50% true and 50% maybe.
Okay.
In regards to the Ozark.
Sure.
It's actually really interesting. Like I interned at this theater company in Massachusetts, and I'm gonna leave them unnamed because I don't know how much they want me to shout them out.
Sure.
But I interned there, and I worked with a lighting designer who's asking me who's asking our crew like a couple of questions, and he like got to me, and he was like, "So where are you from?" I was like, "Oh, I'm from Arkansas," and keep in mind, he had been like talking mad trash about like most of the South. So I'm like the only person from the South in this like whole crew.
Yeah.
And so he was like, "Oh, Arkansas. Oh, yeah. I've been to Fayetteville, and Fayetteville, keep in mind, is a lot like Fayetteville. I think Fayetteville, North Carolina, actually.
There's a Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Where it's sort of considered this like liberal mecca where it's like everybody from like all walks of life walks around and kind of like does their, like their own thing, and like, kind of just exists as a general human being. But it's like these weird little like liberal meccas surrounded by like the rest of these like sort of, not like, I don't want to say like Stranded or like Mad Max Fury Road kind of towns, because like that's not entirely fair.
Yeah.
But it's like these like people that kind of always look at them with this like weird skepticism of like, what, really? You're in our state? don't you belong like somewhere up north?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it's like, but it's beautiful, like pretty much everywhere else in the South, minus the fact that the Klan was born in Arkansas.
Oh, good.
We love that.
Yeah, we love good old Harrison, Arkansas, for sure.
It's cool because Lauren and I, when we made our trip, because we're originally from North Carolina, so when we moved out to LA, a little less than a year ago, I guess at this point, I guess a little more than a year for me, a little less for Lauren.
Yeah.
But we drove through Arkansas and we stayed in Little Rock. I don't know how close that is to where you are from or where you went to college, but that is the extent of our Arkansas knowledge.
Oh yeah, good old. Did you manage to see the Bill Clinton Presidential Museum at all?
No, we
honestly we spent the night in Little Rock. We didn't really make any stops in Arkansas.
Yeah, we got to Arkansas at like 9 p.m. and left at like 9 a.m. So it was that's pretty in and out.
If you, depending on who you ask, that's the perfect amount of time to spend.
Well, there you go. Then we would never need to go there again. Good to know. Thank you, Ben.
I was just gonna say, really, no trip. Like, you can't really get an idea of what the state is actually like until you see the Bill Clinton Museum, because if you actually go and look at it from the side on the Mississippi River, like right next to the Junction Bridge that like kind of connects the whole town, really. If you look at it from a profile, it really does just look like a trailer house, just like leaning over. And it's so funny because like, you don't think that when you look at it head on, and, when you like go in the museum and you're like walking around and you're learning like a lot about this like period of American history. It was designed by a guy in India. Like, it was this very famous Indian modern architect.
Wow.
And he was like, yeah, I took the best of modern architecture and I applied it, and he basically made a trailer house.
Yeah,
that's funny.
That's great. Yeah. Well, that was awesome. We do, however, have a few rapid fire questions that we're gonna throw out to you. Now, these questions are quick. That doesn't mean that they're easy. All right. So first one.
Oh boy.
Are you an early bird or are you a night owl?
Definitely night owl. I get so irritable when I wake up anytime before 9:30 or 10.
Yep.
Get very angry.
Yeah.
Same.
See, I feel like I used to be a night owl, but I feel like I'm becoming more of an early bird just because like life has forced me into it through like jobs and things like that. But I don't know. I still like staying up late. Like, I feel like that's where I originate from.
Yeah.
You just feel like a kid, man. You just gotta live that youth.
There you go.
Exactly.
So hot dogs or hamburgers?
That is a hard one. Probably hamburgers. Don't really know where hot dogs have been most of the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's the correct answer. I ate hot dogs way too much as a kid, and I think it, like, spoiled them for me. Because, like, now I, like, if I can avoid hot dogs, I probably will. Like, I'm always going to choose a hamburger.
I've had some very good hot dogs in my day in Chillicothe, Ohio. But for the most part, you know, I feel like most of the time when you get hot dogs, like, there just isn't that much variety of stuff you put on a hot dog.
Yeah.
As opposed to all the options you have with a burger.
Sure. A boyga.
I will say, if you don't eat a hot dog in Chicago, you're not doing it right.
Fair.
You are just not living life to the fullest.
And I've never had a Chicago dog, so I guess put an asterisk by my answer for that one. All right. If you were an animal, what animal would you be?
Ooh, animal.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. We've actually talked about a lot of this within like my close group of friends. Like we've always been like, oh, what animal are you like feeling today? And you're like weird, like temporal soul or whatever.
Sure.
Like, what are you feeling? But one day, like it really just stuck with me. My theater professor, like my theater, I think it was like my movement professor. At one point was just like, I think you're a flamingo.
Oh.
You move entirely with your knees and your legs. And I was like, okay, well, that's going to stay with me for way too long now.
Absolutely. Oh,
That'll
that's
be
great.
The thought I use my dying breath for. Like.
Yeah. I'm a flamingo.
I'm gonna go into the ground like one.
Exactly. all knees and legs. That's awesome. That's great. There is a test online that I used to get everyone to take. That was like, what animal are you? I think it's animalandyou.com or something like that. So if you would like to take that at some point, that resource is available for you. Yeah.
Maybe we'll put it in the description.
Actually, yes, we're gonna put the Animal and You quiz in the description for sure.
There we go.
Jumping off of that. What is your opinion on peeing in the pool? Are you pro or against it?
Oh man, this guy sounds so gross. Don't get caught. If you do, you have to be publicly shamed.
Okay.
And you have to like What's that bit from Monty Python where he like rings the bell and he like points at people and he's like, shame?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's what I think should be the proper social system behind that, where it's like, if you do it, just, be low key.
Be sneaky about it.
Huh.
Be
and
cunning.
if you're gonna pee in water, go to a beach.
Yes. Yeah.
I feel like that's a different thing. Like, I'm much more okay with someone peeing in a lake
or like
the ocean. Because it's not like a small contained area that just like circulates over and over,
Yeah.
Like someone else probably isn't going to swim in your pee if it's in the ocean or in a lake.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Some of our housemates will be very happy about your answer, however. I will say that. We've had many a discussion about the ethics of that. So
I will say there's only one instance that I think the capital punishment system should use against, and that's people who poop in the pool.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. That should be absolutely utilized. They are a heartless monster.
That's a crime against
hope.
humanity.
Either
for
that
sure.
or they're babies.
Yeah. that's great.
In either case, they gotta go.
Yep. Sorry. Sorry, young ones.
So speaking of being young, I guess, what is your favorite age that you have been?
Oh my God. Definitely not 18.
Okay.
Oh my God. I kind of want to just. Most people don't say this, but I actually really liked being 22.
Interesting.
Me too. I don't know about
That's you right
but
now.
I'm feeling 22.
I'm feeling 20.
Oh no.
Yeah, like. It's weird because it's like when you turn 21, especially if you're like really boring like I am sometimes, it's like you don't want to just do all this like weird stuff that people do when they're drunk.
Sure.
So it was like, I'm going to take my time on this. But then like when I hit 22, it was like, okay, all social rules no longer exist. It is time to start day drinking.
Yes, sir.
That's what college has done.
Once you hit the level of unashamedness where you're like, yep, day drinking, we're doing it today and no one's gonna tell me no, I think that's a good age. That's a good age.
That's when you know you've reached like the peak in your life.
Yes, sir.
That's when you know.
Unfortunately, it's all downhill from here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is our last question. That was it.
So that definitely went longer than we originally planned, and we did start a little late. But thank you so much for hanging in there.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Sorry, I'm. It's probably because I whenever like someone's like, all right, real simple question, it's like, okay, let's do the opposite of that.
No,
You're fine.
we have so much. This is awesome. We loved all your answers. We had a really good time. I know I had a really good
Thank
time.
you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I had fun too.
Yeah. All right.
So if you are interested in producing the news cycle, or if you want to hear more of Ben's work, his email will be in the description of this episode. And yeah, thanks again so much.
Yeah. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Bye.
Bye.
All right, see ya.
Hey everybody, thank you again for listening to this episode of the Green Light Podcast.
Green light.
Thank you to our writers who came on, thank you to our actors who came on. We love you all. Make sure to like us and follow us on our various social media pages, TGL_pod on Instagram and Twitter, and
At Greenlight Pod on Facebook.
thank you, Lauren. Knew I was gonna forget if she didn't say it.
And if you want to hear your play, screenplay, or music on this podcast, feel free to send all of those submissions to tglsubmit@gmail.com.
And we also have a Patreon now. Yay! So if you can, if you want to, if you love us enough, please support us on Patreon. Link in the description to everything that you heard in our description. Links in our
Absolutely.
description.
And if
Yes.
you want to make a one-time donation, just out of the goodness of your heart, then you can make those at tglsubmit@gmail.com on PayPal.
Yes, once again, link in the description.
And if you love this podcast, be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Helps us move up the charts, helps our podcast reach more people.
Yes. Alrighty. Thank you so much again.
Yes, and thank you so much to Nicholas Baffia for the sound equipment.
Love you, Nicholas Baffia.
We love you.
And we love you all. Goodbye.
Bye.